So then we have casting for the first turn. I try to go for some Power of Darkness, which gets dispelled quite handily, and cast the Mystifying Miasma, which fails to go off, so I was going for a bigger version.
Oh, and the double ones here means it should have been a miscast because of the Great Skull, but unfortunately I'd forgotten that the Great Skull was on that unit because I just wasn't used to the way my units were deployed, because usually I have my characters spread out in different ways. So we forgot about this miscast, unfortunately.
You wouldn't forget that for long, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, some Dark Raiders do a little bit of shooting. We kill off one Yeti and throw another wound out there.
During my turn, I declared a charge with my trappers onto his harpies, and of course he flees. I was just trying to get them out of the way and hopefully, get him to run for a couple turns in a row. And I ran into that mystery forest, which turned out to be a forest of
abyssal forest.
Yeah, so I cause fear when I'm in here, so it's no real big deal. The wildwood was the one that rolled on his side, and unfortunately, because he went first, he was able to move right out of it. For the rest of my turn, I just moved in my lead belchers, hoping to obliterate those shades. I moved in some iron guts to threaten the Dark Riders that were harassing my flanks. I turned around my big elephant again to threaten the Dark Riders. I was just going to throw a template on one, and I moved the bulls up next to the marsh. The reason why was because I wanted to use the butcher to cause panic attacks on the Dark Riders. My Yetis moved into the marsh because they're pretty safe in there because they ignore terrain. During the magic phase, I rolled out the big 12, which was really awesome. I was able to get off the regeneration spell. I was also able to get off the +1 toughness and stubborn spell. Unfortunately, I failed both the panic spell and the 2d6 strength 2 spell, and I also failed gaining a wound.
Yeah, I figure at this point in the game, if he wants to put some big buffing spells on his large unit that's going to be out of combat, that's fine, because I want to focus on whittling out the smaller ones first.
In shooting, my lead belchers did what they're supposed to. They did way more than they're supposed to, actually. I got 30 hits against the shades and wiped the unit. I think I did exactly the amount of wounds I needed to do because I got a little unlucky on my shooting hits. But
that was a bit scary. After the first 15, he's like, okay, 3 dead. Like, ooh, really?
Yeah.
And all right, I'll roll those other 15. All right, there they go.
Unfortunately, they're out of the 6-inch bubble, so the Dark Riders don't have to take a test. My scrap launcher misfired. It was a pretty big bummer. It put the pie template right over my head, which only did 1 strength 3, which didn't wound, so it ended up being no big deal. And then I passed the turn.
All right, turn 2. We have basically the Dark Riders are shifting over to the right-hand side of the field. Once again, one of them fails a march block and can't move super far, so they're both hanging out in the front of his armies. One Dark Rider will get around and outside of the charge arc of the Iron Guts, but the other one will not. So Hydra, you can see, is moved up now next to those trappers. You can see where the Dark Riders are there, have shifted over to the side. The fleeing Harpies have rallied because they're right close to my level 9, or Leadership 9 caster. And again, kind of the main infantry line moves forward a little bit. The Corsairs are really starting to press up the flank, and one unit of Harpies has moved behind his bulls. Hopefully he can march block them. I'm not really counting on it with rerollable 9. But that also puts them back there to jump in front of troops and make themselves, annoying. So start off the magic phase with Power of Darkness getting me 1 extra or 2 extra dice, so I get back my investment. But the good news is I pull out all of his spell dice. Then we move on to the Mystifying Miasma, which will reduce the movement, all the stats of his big unit by 3, as it turns out, which I thought was very handy. Because I was setting it up for the Pit of Shades, and as I saw this going into this turn 2, thinking, alright, his initiative is 1, this could really, really wreck the unit. But I said, what the heck, we're playing tournament level, so this is what you would do. So out go the dice, and out comes the Dispel Scroll. So for this turn, the bulls are safe.
Yeah, I was saving the scroll for Pit of Shades. The pendulum wasn't as big of a threat, and the power dice spell, I threw dice at almost every turn. I don't know if you agree that it's a good idea, but I was just trying to prevent you from getting a 6 dice pit off. Basically, because if you're not upping your dice count, then you're only throwing your 3 or 4 dice at it.
Yeah, that's a decent strategy. I probably was going to aim for too big a roll on the pit, and as it turns out, like I said, that removes a lot of dispel dice from your pool, which you're just stopping me getting more power dice for.
True. Alright, yeah, your shooting was pretty nasty.
Yeah, I decided to use my breath weapon early on the trappers there. You know, I could have used it in combat, but skirmishers I found from several past games can be really, really annoying back in the backfield. Just moving around, shooting at you, and they'll do that forever if you don't have the right tools to deal with them. So out goes the breath weapon. We cook up 6 of them, which does panic them and send them running away.
Yeah, and then that was about it for your turn. The Dark Riders didn't do much wounds, I don't think.
Nothing memorable.
Yeah, maybe a wound on an iron gut or something, I don't know.
When you move and you're shooting at range and double tapping, you need 6s. It's just put it out there and you don't expect much.
Okay, for my charge phase, I started out, I sent my Iron Guts against those Dark Riders. You can see here on the picture, the Dark Riders were standing where those 2 red markers are. He declared a flee, and that threw him into the forest and sent him through my unit. And he had to take dangerous terrain checks when he went through the forest. And I believe he lost 1. Yeah, he lost 1. And then I thought, why not? I'll have my bulls charge him as well. Trying to get some more dangerous checks to fail, and also get you pretty much away from the combat. And of course, both my charges fail, but I've run the Dark Riders. They're just barely visible there next to the Hydra.
You mentioned your plan was initially that once they had fled through the trapper was going to charge at them and probably stand a good chance of catching them, but fortunately I had panicked them the turn before, so that kept them safe from that angle.
Yeah, had the trappers not panicked, then I could have sent the Dark Riders. I probably could have caught them, but if I hadn't caught them, I still would have sent them through your army, and they would have bubbled up into your back lines where they're nowhere near as useful.
Oh yeah, that would have been way, way out of the action.
And it puts my Noblars in a nice spot right in front of your frenzied witches, who would have to charge in and have to overrun, because you're not allowed to do the reform.
Assuming that I didn't pass my test to restrain them.
Right, yeah.
But they have to roll, and if you make your opponent roll, then you're one step closer to winning.
True. During the rest of my movement phase, I brought the scrap launcher around just a little bit, just to face those Dark Riders, and I reloaded with my lead belchers, and my Yetis just shifted a little bit, nothing big. During the magic phase, I regained a wound that I had lost on my butcher. I failed to get off the panic spell. I successfully got off the +1 strength spell and made my strength check. So I was +1 strength on those bulls, and that left you with 2 dispel dice at the end.
I decided to let, again, some of those spells go through, like the strength on the bulls, because I wanted to start chipping away at the spells you already had in place, so I picked the +1 toughness spell and dispelled that in my turn.
You know, I would have been better served here by using those 2 dice and recasting my remains in place stubborn spell, because that was the one I really did want, because I wanted that +1 toughness.
I think I had waited until the end of your turn, because we had you had 8 power dice to my 4 dispel, so I let the first spell through, stopped the second, and said, okay, let the third one through, he'll be out of dice, and then I can get rid of the toughness.
I used my scrap launcher and hit the Dark Riders. This is my 1 hit of the game. Spoiler alert, I guess. Anyways, I killed 2, which was enough to panic them and send them into that obstacle. Unfortunately, they made their dangerous terrain check.
Yeah, they're quite nimble.
And then I passed the turn.
Okay, here we have a pretty narrow but in-view charge from the Harpies going after the Trappers. when you trace the line of sight out, it just catches that last guy. So away they run, leaving the Harpies to fall well short. The Dark Riders that you see next to the Hydra are going to rally and then begin moving around again.
Yeah, I declared a flee, obviously, because you would have caught me and really run me down had I not, and I made it away.
So here we see other stuff going on. The Harpies that were behind have now run up in front of the Bulls. You can't... Again, people say redirecting is difficult, and what I was planning on accomplishing here was basically keeping the Bulls from wheeling and getting into my other troops. I want to tie them up for just a little bit longer. The Black Guard have moved up next to the marsh to set up one part of the trap, and the Witch Elves are a little bit back a little bit further. Basically, either way, even if he could get past the Harpies, he charges one of them and should get flanked with the other. And the Cauldron is there to give the stubborn and rerolls. So the level 4 and her bodyguard are moving up to the marsh too. I'm not too worried about the Yeti coming after me because of static res and my level 4 being well protected. And the Corsairs are really running up the flank there, trying to get around in the backfield and get a rear charge on the Bulls, or flank charge on the Iron Guts, or the Lead Belchers, who knows. Spell time. Once again, the Power of Darkness is shut down. I managed to get off another miasma. And here, we remember the Great Maw. So, I do reduce the some of the stats by 3, but I have to take a miscast check. I get a Strength 6 hit on myself, I lose some power dice.
Yeah, 5 power dice.
5, quite a bit of power dice. But I make the pendant save, so everything is good there. And now, once again, we go to the Pit of Shades, which I managed to just cast exactly what I need to on the big unit. And Matt fails to dispel it. And the result of that, 6 dead ogres. The characters all made their lookout sirs, so, you know, they were protected. But 6 of the big boys fell down the hole.
Pretty devastating, to say the least. When that spell went off, I, at the time, felt like it was kind of game over. Because those 6 were a lot to lose in one spell, and I've got more turns of the same thing coming at me. I really had hoped it was going to scatter, obviously, but it hit dead on.
If I could put a little interjection here quick. Some of you watching may have seen this matchup and said, oh my god, really? Ogres and Dark Elves? To be fair, I had asked him what kind of army to bring, and Matt said, you know, bring your Dark Elves because we don't have any players up here who have a fully brought up army, and you know, we can still make a game, but we're both going to aim for like tournament lists around a similar comp value. So, you know, give it a try. So this was not me being a jerk, I swear.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mismatch, but it's
true.
Nothing you wouldn't see at a tournament, that's for sure.
Consider it one of those early round games.
So on my turn, I declared a really long charge that Chris wasn't expecting with my Iron Guts onto his Hydra. This is perfectly legal, and I'm only actually 10.5 inches away. What I do is I just move forward about 8 inches, and then do a 85-degree turn, and then go straight into the Hydra. And it's hard to see this one coming, because in 7th edition, this would be a 24-inch charge.
It would be huge. Yeah, but all you're measuring from is the left corner of the Ogres to the corner of my Hydra. You got that in range? Great. Then just make the rest of it work.
Yeah, make
so.
it so.
In it comes, which is something we're going to have to remember in about 2 weeks when we go to the Crossroads GT.
Yeah, so I charged in and I hit that Hydra. I was able to rally my trappers, but since I was within 1 inch of my own unit, I couldn't perform a reform maneuver, because reform is movement, and you may not move when you're within an inch of any troops. So we just decided we'd just have them stand there. I reformed with my Yetis, narrowing the frontage if he did decide to charge into the marsh, which I didn't think he was going to do because that's a lot of dangerous terrain checks.
Briefly considered it, but I thought, no, let's not be crazy.
Well, I think really, if you charged with something like your Blackguard, I would have just fled, left you in the marsh. You would have had at least 2 rounds of rolling those dangerous terrains.
Yep, and you know, those ones can come up awfully often.